how to Daubert-Proof your personal injury business. So what does that mean, Daubert-Proof? What is the Daubert standard? So let me talk about it in terms of personal injury. By the way, my name is Mark Slater. I've been a personal injury consultant now for over 6 years, been a chiropractor for over 25 years, started practices from scratch with consultants, sold practices within 2 years for a big multiple, bought PI practices, built them up. I've been VP of Sales and Marketing for some of the largest spine surgeons in the South, getting 200 new PI patients, 30 spine surgeries a month. So I've been in this business a long time, and now I've created a company to help you grow your personal injury business. So let's talk about the Daubert standard. So the Daubert standard is a rule of evidence regarding the admissibility of expert witnesses' testimony in federal court. Providers in the personal injury space should understand this standard to ensure that their expert testimony and diagnostic methods meet the legal requirements for reliability and relevance in court. So, well, what do I mean by that? Well, hang out with me here for a second. I'm going to give you some specific examples of how to Daubert-proof your practice. So here we go. So the Daubert standard again, in terms of chiropractic, if you're just giving chiropractic adjustments, you're adjusting whiplash, sprain, strain, your scope of practice, you're fine. You meet the Daubert standard if you ever go to court and that's all you did. Now, let's say you're screening patients for traumatic brain injury or concussion. You give them the Rivermead post-concussion questionnaire, the Stanford questionnaire, and you're doing some tests. Maybe they're not FDA approved, or I don't know what you may be doing, but you need to be doing FDA approved cognitive tests. We get our clients certified with the impact test. We give them a right eye test, right? So even though you're doing these screening tests, those are FDA approved tests, and it's going to generate results. Unfortunately, in a chiropractic scope of practice, yes, we're allowed to treat concussions, or we're allowed to screen for them because we are allowed to deal with the nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, and concussions deal with the brain. However, when it generates that report, in order to meet the Daubert standard, that report has to be conferred by the proper specialist, like a medical neurologist. So when you do, let's say, this right eye test is going to fire lights into the eyes. Oculomotor deficit's the number one sign of a possible traumatic brain injury or concussion. The report that right eye generates has to be interpreted by a medical neurologist, because if it goes into deposition, or if it goes all the way to court, it's going to get challenged by the defense. So if you are doing these screening tests for cognitive deficits because you have suspected a concussion and you have a TBI protocol, and the proper specialists have done that report and evaluated that report, that's going to meet the Daubert challenge in court. And everything that I present to my clients has met the Daubert challenge. Even, let's say, ligament instability diagnosing. If you're taking lateral flexion extension views, and you're drawing the lines of mensuration, and you're following the AMA guidelines, because chiropractors can do that. They can follow the AMA guidelines to diagnose ligament instability. A 3.5 millimeter of translation in any direction is a 25% permanent whole body impairment. And that's fine. That meets the Daubert challenge. However, if you have a neutral third party that's doing it, and they generate the report from you and list all the medical reference journals that they're using, that is going to really Daubert-proof your ligament instability diagnosing, because that third party, and if you pay them directly, and we have a deal where we pay an individual $200 per report, and he'll generate that report. If it's done by a third party who has no interest in the case, that is really going to lock down and meet the Daubert challenge, because they've already been paid. They have no interest in the settlement amount because they're not getting paid out of that settlement. So an insurance attorney, insurance adjuster can't push back on that, because that third party just says, hey, we were paid. We were just evaluating the films that were given to us, and we generated that report. So if you're doing FDA approved tests, that's going to meet the Daubert standard, but those tests have to be interpreted by a proper specialist in order for hold up in court. So the Daubert standard requires that any scientific testimony or evidence presented must be reliable and relevant. Providers must use methods and principles that are scientifically valid and have been peer reviewed. Well, if they're FDA approved, they've been peer reviewed, it meets that criteria. So any diagnostic tools or procedures, impact test, right eye test, to test for a traumatic brain injury must be widely accepted within the scientific community. So it just makes sense that a medical neurologist should interpret a report from a traumatic brain injury cognitive test. That's going to meet the Daubert standard. Peer reviews, publications, that's why all the reports generated from the doctors that we use for our TBI protocols and our ligament instability training, they list all the peer-reviewed articles and publications. It's hard for defense attorneys to argue against published standard of care. That's why these doctors list out all the peer-reviewed journals and publications that they're pulling their information from. That's how you Daubert-proof your office, especially if you're doing higher level exams or higher level cognitive exams for traumatic brain injury, ligament instability training. Those things have to be interpreted by the proper specialist in order for it to hold up in court. So that's what I wanted to talk about in order to Daubert-proof your practice. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe to my channel. I always produce a long form video in the personal injury industry to help you grow your personal injury business, not just how to market better, but also how to make your practice more marketable. Because anybody can reach out to attorneys and beg for patients. But if you reach out to attorneys and tell them that you have the services and modalities to help them get policy limits on these cases and you can back it up, that's going to make you a really attractive option in your town for all these personal injury attorneys to send their injured clients to you if you use the FDA approved tests interpreted by the proper specialist so that you can tell them that everything we do in our office meets the Daubert challenge. So like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for attending today. Have a great rest of your week, a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.